Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli officials say they'll further delay the reopening of the Rafah border crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip as Israel continues to severely limit humanitarian aid to more than 2 million Palestinians still suffering from hunger and malnutrition, as well as severe shortages of medicine, clean water, and other basic goods. Meanwhile, Al Jazeera reports Israeli fires killed at least 3 Palestinians so far today, despite the ceasefire deal that went into effect last week. Israeli officials have threatened to end the truce if Hamas doesn't return all the bodies of the dead Israeli hostages. On Wednesday, Hamas said it had turned over 2 more bodies, bringing the total number to 9, but said it would need specialized equipment to search through the rubble to find the bodies of 19 remaining captives, many believed killed by Israeli strikes. The Israeli military is not allowing in that specialized equipment. Meanwhile, thousands of Palestinians who were forced by Israel to flee their neighborhoods are returning to find their homes in rubble. This is displaced Gaza City resident Al-Abed Al-Fioumi.
There's no work, no food, no drinks, no housing, and now winter is coming. By God Almighty, I'm telling you, I swear we don't have blankets. I have nothing, nothing at all. I left and my house was destroyed, and I'm still in the same situation, and now we're suffering. Where are we supposed to live? Where are we supposed to go? What are we supposed to do? There are about 36 of us here. Me, my grandchildren, my daughters-in-law, and my children, and we don't know where to go or where to turn.
The popular Palestinian leader, Marwan Barghouti, is suffering rib fractures after being beaten unconscious in an Israeli prison, the Palestinian prisoner's media office said Wednesday. His son, Ara Barghouti, said the assault took place as his father was being transferred between prisons in Israel. According to Ara Barghouti, the beating allegedly took place after far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir visited Marwan Barghouti in prison in August and showed him a picture of an electric chair, telling him he deserved to be executed. Marwan Barghouti has been in prison for 20 years, serving 5 life sentences. Israel prevented his inclusion on the list of Palestinian prisoners to be freed as part of the ceasefire deal. In Spain, hundreds of thousands of workers and students walked out of schools and workplaces Wednesday in support of the Palestinian people, calling on the Spanish government to sever ties with Israel. Huge crowds marched in Barcelona, Valencia, Bilbao, Sevilla, and Madrid.
My conscience wouldn't allow me to be home. It's taken so long. It's been 2 years for people to mobilize and say, stop the genocide. Spain should cut economic and diplomatic ties with the Israeli government. They speak nice words, but until we break ties, Israel will keep on doing whatever it wants.
The Swedish activist Greta Thunberg has provided details about the abuse she and other participants of the global Samud flotilla suffered in Israeli detention after they were abducted on the high seas while attempting to bring food and medicine to Gaza. Thunberg describes a visit by Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to the Ketziot prison, where the activists were being held. She says he shouted, "You are terrorists, you want to kill Jewish babies," and those who shouted back were taken aside and beaten. Thunberg says she was repeatedly kicked by guards, forced to undress, and was held in an insect-infested cell where she was deprived of food and water. She says she was repeatedly called a whore in Swedish by the Israeli guards, who scrawled the word and other profane graffiti on her suitcase. Thunberg said, quote, "If Israel, with the whole world watching, can treat a well-known white person with a Swedish passport this way, just imagine what they do to Palestinians behind closed doors," unquote. President Trump says he's authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. This comes as the U.S. says it destroyed 5 boats in the Caribbean Sea, allegedly carrying drugs, reportedly killing 27 people. 4 of those boats allegedly came from Venezuela. Speaking to reporters Wednesday, Trump said, quote, "We are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control," unquote. In response, the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, lashed out at the possibility of further U.S. intervention.
No to regime change, which reminds us so much of the endless failed wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and so on. No to CIA-orchestrated coups d'etats, which recall the 30,000 disappeared in the CIA-backed coups against Argentina, Pinochet's coup, and the 5,000 young people who were killed or disappeared.
Dozens of reporters handed in their access badges and walked out of the Pentagon Wednesday afternoon instead of agreeing to the Defense Department's new press policy. The policy states media outlets and reporters cannot obtain any information that the Pentagon does not explicitly authorize. About 40 to 50 journalists from major news outlets left together before the 4 p.m. deadline. Jack Keane, a retired U.S. Army general and analyst for Fox News, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's former employer, said, quote, "They want to spoon-feed information to the journalist, and that would be their story. That's not journalism," he said. Only the One America News Network agreed to sign on to the Pentagon's new press policy. The Supreme Court on Wednesday appeared ready to strike down a key provision of the Voting Rights Act. During oral arguments, justices expressed skepticism over whether Section 2 of the landmark 1965 law should be allowed to continue. Section 2 outlaws the creation of election districts that dilute minority groups' voting power. This comes as Republican state lawmakers in Texas, Missouri, and Utah are pushing ahead with mid-decade redistricting efforts in 2025 ahead of next year's midterm elections. Other redistricting battles are underway in California, North Carolina, and Ohio as Republicans seek to hold their House and Senate majorities. The federal government shutdown has entered its 16th day. On Wednesday, a federal judge temporarily halted the Trump administration from laying off 4,000 government workers across 8 agencies, siding with unions. In her ruling, Judge Susan Ilston wrote that the White House Budget Office and Office of Personnel Management have, quote, taken advantage of the lapse in government spending and government functioning to assume that all bets are off, that the laws don't apply to them anymore, and they can impose the structures that they like, unquote. The ruling came as the Senate failed to pass a funding bill for the 9th time on Wednesday. In immigration news, the Trump administration is preparing to deport a man arrested by ICE on the same day he was freed from a Pennsylvania prison after serving 43 years behind bars for a crime he did not commit. On October 3rd, 64-year-old Subramaniam Vedam walked free from Huntington State Correctional Institution, where he'd been held for over 4 decades after his conviction for a 1982 murder was vacated. His freedom came 3 years after the Pennsylvania Innocence Project uncovered evidence prosecutors had buried an FBI report that would have exonerated him. He was immediately arrested by ICE agents acting on a decades-old deportation order. He's now being held at an ICE jail in central Pennsylvania and set to be deported to India. Vedam's niece told the Miami Herald, quote, "He left India when he was 9 months old. He hasn't been there for over 44 years. And the people he knew when he went as a child have passed away. His whole family, his sister, his nieces, his grandnieces, we're all U.S. citizens, and we all live here," she said. The Trump administration is considering a plan to radically curtail refugee admissions to the United States while giving preference to English speakers, white South Africans, and Europeans who oppose migration. That's according to documents obtained by the New York Times, which reports the proposals would transform a program aimed at helping the most vulnerable people in the world into one that gives preference to mostly white people who say they're being persecuted. Among the beneficiaries would be members of the Alternative for Germany party, known as AfD, whose leaders have revived Nazi slogans, minimized the Holocaust, and promoted anti-immigrant hatred. Members of the Democratic Women's Caucus on Wednesday marched through the Capitol and to Speaker Mike Johnson's office with Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva demanding she be sworn in. Grijalva won a special election in Arizona more than 3 weeks ago. She would be the final vote on a discharge petition to release the Epstein files. On Tuesday, Grijalva reported she finally had access to her congressional office, but that the phone lines aren't working and there's no computers or internet in the office. Meanwhile, convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, is reportedly receiving preferential treatment at a minimum security prison in Bryan, Texas. According to the Wall Street Journal, Maxwell met with several visitors in the federal prison camp's chapel back in August, while hundreds of prisoners were placed on lockdown and forced to stay in their dormitories. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Nermeen Sheikh. Welcome to our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.